Hello everyone and welcome to Dota's first official guide. Today I'll be doing a guide to one of my favourite heroes currently, and that's Huskar. Yes, you heard me right, Huskar. The reason I'm doing a guide to this guy is because I truly think he's one of the most enjoyable heroes in the current meta, and can easily be used to dominate any game in the right hands. So today I'm going to try my best to show you why I think Huskar is so strong, and hopefully you can take what I've said in this video and make it work in your games as well. So let's get down to it. First off, I'm going to go over his skills. To kick this off, I'm going to go over his first skill, which is Inner Vitality, which can be cast on allies and Huskar himself through Magic Immunity. Inner Vitality is an interesting skill because its effectiveness is dependent on two different factors. Both of these factors scale upwards in percentage as you level it. The first factor is based off of Huskar's or an ally's primary attribute. This scales up to 20%. The second factor only applies when Huskar or an ally is below 40% health. On Huskar himself, a red aura will appear around him, indicating he is below the 40% threshold. This bonus heal scales very well as you level it up to a maximum of 80%, so taking this into account, it is an advantage to build strength items and keep yourself below that 40% threshold when applying this skill to yourself. Huskar's second skill is his primary source of DPS in the early and mid game. Burning Spears is an orb effect attack, similar to Viper's poison attack and Drow's frost arrows. Only for Huskar it costs no mana, it costs 15 health or levels. Considering the fact that you're not going to be building many DPS items in themselves, his stat gain is fairly weak and his base damage is fairly weak, Burning Spears will be your primary source of DPS. It scales from 5 to 20 damage at level 4 and can stack upon each other. Each stack lasts 8 seconds and applies a burning debuff. The damage does not reduce with each stack, and thus the more stacks you apply, the higher the damage over time. In my experience, this is the skill to max first, as it is mostly useful in the early game. However, in the laning phase, it is smart to use this skill sparingly, and not to use autocast, as it will reduce your health significantly, making you very easy to kill. Huskar's third sub-ultimate ability is his passive. It's called Berserker's Blood. This applies a stack of magic resistance and attack speed based on missing health. I did some research on the numbers for this ability. The first stack is gained at 87% of his maximum HP, meaning you won't get a stack until you reach that threshold. The rest of the stacks are applied every 7% of missing maximum HP, up to a maximum of 14 stacks. This equates to 98% magic resistance and 280 attack speed at its maximum level. The stacks will apply immediately, meaning even instant spells such as Finger of Death and Lena's Laguna Blade are heavily affected by this spell. Huskar's final ability is his ultimate. It's called Life Break. Huskar leaps onto the enemy hero, reducing his own current HP and that of his targets. It has a 550 cast range and applies a scaling movement speed slow. That starts at 40% and scales to 60%. Also, the duration of the slow increases with each level if the damage dealt to Huskar and his target remains the same at all levels, unless you purchase Aghanim Scepter. In my opinion, this is his worst scaling skill, and thus I always choose to leave it at level 1 until I have maxed my sub-ultimate abilities first. A 40% slow is more than enough with the level 1 ultimate, and a 4-second duration is all you really need. Before we get into some more clips, let's just briefly talk about who and what counters Huskar and what assists him. In my experience, his main hero counters are as follows. Bloodseeker. Huskar is very reliant on being able to chase his target, and Rupture is pure damage and thus hinders this. Axe. As Axe's chop is pure damage, Huskar will often be below the threshold to be executed. Lena. Her ult with Aghanims does 950 pure damage. This is more than enough to bring down Huskar. Slardar. As his ult will drastically increase the amount of physical damage Huskar takes, Huskar won't be able to stay in the fight for very long with this debuff on him. Juggernaut. Juggernaut deals high physical damage. His ult is physical, and he can spin to purge the Burning Spear stacks. Razor. Huskar needs to leap onto his target and deal physical damage. This gives Razor a free static link, draining him of Huskar's ability to lifesteal and his damage, giving Razor free damage. Phantom Assassin. Her high evasion stops Huskar from lifestealing and dealing damage, and her high physical damage output can easily bring Huskar down. Slark, his stat drain and physical damage output really hurt Huskar. His ability to be invisible and still attack means Huskar is unable to lifesteal and apply stacks of burning spears. And finally, his biggest counter in my experience is Ancient Apparition. Without regen, Huskar is completely useless, and AA stops all regen and lifesteal. Using Armlet is absolutely fatal while debuffed by the Frost Blast. That's a lot of counters, but don't worry guys, with good play, certain items and certain friends, you can deal with any and all counters. So on that note, let's talk about Huskar's friends. Heroes that are good with Huskar include Oracle. His ultimate and heal are perfect for Huskar as they allow him to deal strong sustained damage and be near impossible to take down. Just be sure not to disarm Huskar because he doesn't really need the magic immunity and he pretty much relies on attacking the enemy heroes. Wyvern, her ability to make Huskar immune to physical damage and regen his health at the same time really make him an unstoppable monster. Dazzle, his ability to make Huskar invincible for a short duration of time and his ability to heal and buff his armor make Dazzle the perfect companion for Huskar. Lich. This is a minor one, but the bonus armor is always nice, and Lich is a solid mecha carrier. By mecha, I mean mechanism. Abaddon, similar to other friends, Abba's ability to heal and shield Huskar is always welcome. Wisp. Wisp, or Io, is a carry's best friend, and Huskar is no exception to this. The damage reduction and bonus attack speed make Huskar insanely powerful. Omni Knight, free magic immunity and pure damage heals, as well as AoE physical damage immunity, yes please. Treant, another minor one, but living armor is seriously good with Huskar, and his ability to immobilize units give Huskar free reign over fight. Now let's briefly go over items that counter and aid Huskar. I won't give an explanation for most of these, but just know that anything that causes Huskar to miss or be unable to attack really hurts him. Items that help him often include heavy armor, strong lifesteal, and a lot of bonus strength. Items that counter Huskar are as follows: Solar Crest, Medallion, Heaven's Halberd, Silver Edge. This item actually disables Huskar's passive, sad Huskar. Scythe of Vice, Desolator, Butterfly, Lincoln Sphere, Force Staff, Ghost Scepter, and finally Abyssal Blade. Items that are good on Huskar and help him are as follows: Heart of Tarask, Halberd, Assault Cuirass, Satanic. Any kind of lifesteal, but be careful while using Mask of Madness. Black King Bar, especially for that pesky Ancient Apparition ultimate. Armlet, this is probably his most core item. MKB, but only really to counter evasion. MKB stands for Monkey King Bar. Power Treads. With that out of the way, let's talk about Huskar in general before we get into anything else. Huskar is a ranged strength carry that is very potent at all points in the game. Primarily, however, I would take him as a mid-game carry, and I recommend you do this as well, as this is where I feel he is most effective. He can be taken mid or safe lane, but in my personal experience, he is best as a safe lane. You can take him mid though, he can stand up to most mids because, as I'm about to show you, Huskar is a laning monster and can zone any off lane with burning spears and most mids. He is very reliant upon regeneration, healing and lifesteal, and thus you want to build your items around this. He will often need armor because he is very squishy to physical damage with lower agility gain. Pure damage is his absolute enemy as he relies on staying at low health and being incredibly difficult to bring down. Huskar starts at level 1 with 46 base damage, 549 HP, 1 base armor, 300 movement speed, and 234 mana. All of this before buying any items. When compared to other heroes, particularly strength heroes, Huskar's stats seem incredibly low, and his stat gains aren't much better. To counter this, you'll want to start with a Tango, a Salve, 2 branches, and a Circlet. This will bring you to 625 HP and 50 base damage, and a bit of extra mana. While this is still pretty low, this will allow you to get a fast magic wand and start gaining those charges early on, which can later be used when in a tight situation or when you go for a risky kill with your ultimate. After this, in the laning stage, I then buy brown boots, and a morbid mask soon after. You will need lifesteal as fast as possible, and without it your health will get very low while harassing with burning spears. After this, I then rush my armlet. I do this because Huskar is absolutely exceptional with armlet. Toggling is a lot easier to do while affected by inner vitality, and you can really use the HP gain / loss to your advantage. While toggling low, you can bait in the enemy and then toggle straight up to deal with them. Once I have my armor, I then go for powered treads, as it is +9 strength, which directly affects your heal. It also obviously gives you the attack speed and +9 damage with the obvious HP. You won't need to toggle treads on Huskar, but if you really want that heal, you can toggle to intelligence. I've tried phase on Huskar, and while it isn't bad, it doesn't seem to have as much synergy with its skills as much as treads do. I then go for Helm of the Dominator. The main reason being that extra armor is much needed, it gives a little bit of extra damage, and the lifesteal is good. It also allows you to pick up a Frost Ogre for armor, or a Wolf for extra damage. Vlad's is a viable alternative, as it now affects ranged heroes, but I still think Dominator is the way to go, as it can later be built into Satanic, which is very good on Huskar. After this, I usually build Heaven's Halberd, as it gives Huskar everything he needs. It gives him a lot of strength and evasion, and also the ability to disarm an enemy carry, which reduces the physical damage output that will be put upon Huskar. I will then go for Assault Cuirass, as the armor is much needed, and it also gives a little bit of extra attack speed. Not like Huskar needs that, but he will be doing more damage because of the armor reduction onto enemy heroes. Past this point, you can either go for Satanic, MKB to counter high evasion targets, Heart of Taraz to tank up further and directly affect your inner vitality, or Black King Bar if Ancient Apparition is on the enemy team. As stated before, Huskar relies on keeping his HP as low as possible without immediately dying. Armlet is a great way to do this, as Unholy Strength always gives you the ability to switch between a very low amount of HP and a moderate amount of HP, which still gives you insane amounts of magic resistance and attack speed. Learning to effectively use Armlet on Huskar is key to being successful. Combine inner vitality and lifesteal to make toggling armor on and off a lot easier. With this in mind, it's important to realize you cannot play Huskar passively. He farms relatively fast, but his main strength comes from his kill potential and how hard he is to kill with spells. As physical damage is always going to be lower in the early game, you really need to exploit this fact, play aggressively, and establish map dominance. With this in mind, however, once you commit to a fight, you are committed. There is no running. Huskar is very slow, and you won't be building movement speed unless you really love Sanjin Yasha. His ult puts you deep in the fight, and his reliance on life stealing means you must fight. This can be a bit scary at first. It's very unnatural for most Dota players to stay in a fight on very low HP, but get used to the idea of staying low and fighting, and you will be successful. Also, do not be afraid to toggle during a fight. Inner vitality will surge in effectiveness when you toggle off, and save you from that dreaded 1 HP armlet death, which is so easy to fall for on heroes like Chaos Knight and Slardar. Huskar is a fantastic laning carry. You'll obviously want to harass the enemy hero as much as possible to help you win the lane. This is made easier due to the fact that Huskar has decent range and a good animation. While his base damage is low, lowering your health will make last hitting easier, as your attack speed will become higher. Huskar has the potential to kill most offlaners with the help of a support that has a disable or slow, and in some cases he can even kill offlaners solo with good baiting techniques and health management. Taking Huskar mid is a little riskier, as you will be at lower health than most mids, and you are a lot easier to gank than most mids, than compared when in the safe lane. Huskar obviously destroys most melee mid heroes, but heroes like TA can definitely kill him with levels in Meld and or a rune. He stands up well against most ranged mids, but do be aware, anything that outranges him or has a superior animation will have an easy time CSing in the lane. Due to Huskar's low base damage and susceptibility to being ganked, I would recommend taking him safe lane. One of the best ways to establish map control on Huskar is to take Roshan early. This can be done solo once you have Armlet, Treads and Morbid Mask, or it can be done with friendly heroes who can damage Roshan in the early game. Aegis is incredibly effective on Huskar, as the enemy team will have to spend large amounts of mana and health to bring you down. This is similar to Meepo. Once you get back up, you're bound to be at an advantage and can easily clean up the remaining heroes. As you can see here, I am quickly able to take down Roshan on my own by making sure I stay at a low amount of HP by toggling my armlet effectively. Keep in mind, though, getting contested while soloing Roshan is dangerous. This is much like when playing Ursa, but just realise the payoff is more than worth it. Much like when soloing Roshan, jungling is much faster at lower health. You'll want to use Burning Spears on and off to maintain around 200 HP and be able to lifesteal. And with doing this you will be able to efficiently farm camps and increase your GPM. Don't stay in the jungle for too long, however. Of course this varies game by game, but just know, once you have armlet and lifesteal, you can kill most heroes on the map, solo or with help. Do be aware, however, while jungling at this amount of HP, you are incredibly easy to kill for most physical damage heroes. To counter this, you'll want to have good vision around your jungle, so do ask your supports if they could ward your jungle heavily, so you can farm up to get the core items on Huskar. If you do not have the protection around the jungle, it may be a bit safer to stay at a higher amount of HP, so you can react to ganks. When playing against one of the before mentioned counters, it's important to build your items around this. With this in mind though, you'll always want to buy your free core items before building against any counters. As you can see here, even in the latter portion of the game, Ancient Apparition is able to easily bring me down with a well placed ultimate from long range. In this particular game, killing him before he could ult was not an option, as AA is able to sit on the other side of the map and still have impact. In this case, I was forced to build BKB to counter his ultimate effect. When playing against a high DPS physical damage hero, you'll want to buy a halberd for the evasion and disarm, or even a solar crest to buff your armor and provide even more evasion. For pure damage nukes, you'll want to build as much HP as possible. I haven't tried it yet, but against Lina, a Lotus Orb could be the way to go. Experiment with what works for you best, and don't be put off by picking Huskar because of a counter on the enemy team. You can always build items around them. While playing with heroes that buff Huskar's ability to fight at low health, you'll want to change your playstyle accordingly. Heroes such as the aforementioned friends allow for an even more aggressive playstyle. Diving past towers and deep into the enemy team is much more viable when you have a support that can buff your survivability. Just make sure to keep an eye on where your support player is, as a lot of heroes such as Storm Spirit and Templar Assassin can easily jump to the backlines and pick off your valuable support, rendering you solo. Huskar excels at soaking large amounts of damage and dealing good physical and magical DPS. With this in mind, you will want to be the initiator, or at least the one to back up your initiator. Much like Phantom Assassin, you rely on diving into the enemy team, killing supports, and creating space for your own team to get off their spells. Don't be afraid to jump an out of position enemy hero, as the initiation and surprise factor can heavily play in your team's favour. As you can see here, I am staying deep in the fight against high DPS heroes. As I said before, running is absolutely not an option. Thankfully my Oracle player is on point and saves me just in time, turning the fight. Huskar is very viable in both solo and party games, purely because of his versatility and synergy with other heroes. Here I am purely relying on the reactions of my supports, and in this case it paid off. In solo this is less reliable, but in this case I was queued with friends. Try replicating some of these hero combos with your friends, and I'm sure you will have successful and fun games. So after all is said and done, that is the end of my guide. I truly hope you gained a better understanding of Huskar, who at the moment, in my opinion, is a very underrated hero. At the time I made this guide, the game was played in 6.84c, so take this into account if you are watching in a later patch. In 6.84c, an aggressive playstyle is very rewarding, and Huskar fits into this perfectly. The laning stage is also very important, and Huskar is a good pick for lane dominance and the ability to take Roshan early. With all this in mind, don't be afraid to take this into your own games, as I believe Huskar is a viable pick at all MMRs. For those of you interested in the facts, all of these replays were my own, and they were played in solo ranked and party ranked at low 5k MMR. Also, some games were played in unranked. All games were played on the EU West server. Thank you so much for watching my first ever guide to a hero. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to let me know. Liking or even disliking is really helpful for smaller YouTubers like myself. And if you want to see more of these guides, please subscribe. Let me know in the comments what you thought was bad and good. And also let me know in the comments section below which hero guide you wanted to see the most, and I will do my best to create it. For those of you here for my Meepo replays who want a Meepo guide, please realise I will release a Meepo guide, but only once I am truly experienced with my editing software. In other words, I want my Meepo guide to be my best guide. Thanks for watching this. This has been GeoDota.
See ya!